Good morning. This is Group 8, and we are here to make our presentation on input output in computer architecture and organization. Introduction to input output systems. When we say input output, this refers to the communication between a computer and external devices. The purpose for the input and output system is to allow the transfer of data between the CPU, memory, and peripheral devices. The peripheral devices involves the keyboard, the mouse, the printer, the storage devices, and etc. One of the challenges that input and output system faces is bridging of the speed gap between fast CPU or memories and slow input-output devices. So the thing is, some CPUs have a faster memory speed than the input and output devices. So there's kind of like a challenge being able to balance the speed of the CPU with the input and output device. So input and output subsystem in computer architecture. So we have input and output devices, which are the peripheral devices. For example, the keyboard, the monitor, the hard disk, the printers, and the other basic ones. We have the input-output modules, which are also known as the controllers. This serves as the interface between the CPU and the devices. This is more like the bridge or the joint between the CPU and the input-output devices. And then we have the input-output buses. So this is the pathway for data transfer. So the bus is simply like the terminal where we are able to connect the peripheral device to the CPU to allow the transfer of data. And then we have input-output software, which refers to the drivers and operating system routines for managing input-output operations. Here we have the types of input and output devices. They are classified into three categories, which are the human readable devices, the machine readable devices, and the communication devices. Taking the human readable device into detail, we have the input device, which are the keyboards, the monitors, and the microphones. The output devices also are the input devices, we have keyboard, mouse, and microphone. These are the devices that take information into the system. And then we have output devices, which is the monitor, the printer, and the speaker. These are the devices that bring the information out for the human to be able to see or hear. Then we have machine readable devices. These are devices that are able to process data that the human brain cannot process. So we have the input device such as the sensors and the barcode readers. Then we have the output devices, which are the disks and actuators. For the communication devices, we have the network cards and the modems. The input-output modules, which is also known as the controllers.
These input-output modules, bracket controllers, act as intermediaries between CPU and input-output devices. Its functions include communication, which involves sending and receiving data, error detection and correction, buffering, which is the temporary storage of data, and synchronization. Methods of input-output data transfer: programmed input-outputs or pooling method. This method is when CPU continuously checks check device status. This is when the CPU directly controls data transfer between itself and the input-output device. The CPU continuously checks device status to know when to read or write data. It's simple to implement, but it wastes CPU time, and CPU cannot perform other tasks while performing the transfer. Second one is interrupt-driven I/O. This is when the device sends an interrupt signal when ready. The CPU suspects its current operation, handles the input-output operation, then resumes its initial function. It's more efficient, and the CPU works on other tasks instead of constant pulling. Third one is direct memory access. DMA controllers transfer data directly to memory without CPU intervention. The DMA is a specialized hardware controller that moves data between input-output devices and memory by bypassing the CPU. CPU initiates the transfer, and DMA takes the rest. Memory mapped I/O. Input-output devices share the same address space as memory. Isolated input-output device or port map and buses are shared communication pathways connecting CPU, memory, and input-output devices. It carries electrical charges. It carries electrical signals and data between system components. And it's divided into three types: data bus, address bus, and control bus. We have interfaces. Interfaces are standards for connecting devices, which include HDMI and Thunderbolt.